Coast Guard sa do you think magiging lalo din sabi rin ng Pangulo na humingi yata kung saan ibabagsak ng missile. Ano? Yung missile? O kung saan, parang papipiliin pa kung saan bababagsakin ng China yung missile. Walang interview yata sinabi yun eh.
Yung missile natin?
Missile ng China.
Well, kasi missile destroyer yun, no?
Yeah, oo.
Alam mo, hindi ko masasagot yan dahil alam mo, ang China is a 3,000 millennium civilization. Yung patient, ako, nababagot na sa patience ng China.
Oo nga eh.
Masyado sila papagtindi pagdating sa ganito. Lalo na Pilipinas. Pilipinas is a soft part of China.
Oo, kasi marami sila kasi...
Meron silang interference pagdating sa atin.
Dahil ba yun, Kuya Ado, sa marami kasing mga Chinese citizen, I mean, mga Chinese na, at least kahit na Filipino citizens na kadugo pa rin naman nila.
Yun na nga. Yan ang dapat gamitin na logic.
Diba?
Hindi yung...
Kaya ganun sila mag-isip eh.
Ng ating Pangulo is because of geography, wala tayong choice. Hindi ba?
Kaya nga sabi ko sa'yo, kailangan mong makausap yung president. Ano lang, for the benefit of the doubt. Gusto kong isipin kasi, Ado, ng presidente, meron pa rin naiiwang kabutihan at pag-iisip na mapaayos yung bansa. Diba? Ayokong totaling i-block yung kaya sana magkaroon ng pagkakataon talaga na maliwanagan. Sino lang ba yung mga pwedeng magsabi sa kanya na technically know-how? Isa ka lang naman doon. The rest is merong mga tinatawag tayong mga vested interest. Hindi lang personal vested interest. Political vested interest din. Di ba?
Papatawag ko naman si Kaado sa...
Papatawag na naman sa Senado si Kaado.
Baka China ka ba?
Mukha lang po akong incheck.
Hindi papatawag si Kaado ngayon dahil busy sila sa flood control kasi...
Oo nga, busy sa flood control
Uutang pala ng...
Kahapon,
Uutang pala ng bilyong-bilyong dolyar sabi ni Sas.
Basta ba imbitado tayo, okay lang, hindi tayo pagsalitain. Anyway,
basta mahagip ka lang ng camera, no?
Anyway, at this point, can we see the comments? Para mabigyan natin ng... Yeah. 28. Gusto yun na reporter na buluntin.
Pinoy Farm Beast.
Sino ba yun? Walang permission from DFA yung from China. Yes, of course. We've already verified that. Like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam joint brings for economic growth and the general welfare of citizens. Okay, how about Banak? Well, sa tulong ni Moving Law today, meron siya report regarding that. Ang pinimension ni Moving Law, yung anatomy of choice alignment index, offers two major findings. First, when Southeast Asian countries say they don't want to choose between China and the US, it doesn't mean that all of them are on the fence, nasa gitna. Averaging out their alignment positions over the past 30 years, we found out that
Ano sabi?
50 yung yung nasa gitna, no? 50-50. Ito ang alignment. Indonesia, 49, 49, Malaysia 47, 47, Singapore 48, 48, Thailand 45. So, They're doing their best to balance the whole thing. This is for the past 30 years. Other ASEAN countries are more closely allied with a superpower. Myanmar, 24 land, Laos, 29, Cambodia, 38, Vietnam, 43, and Brunei, 44, are all aligned with China. So yung sa 10 membro ng ASEAN, 4 yung medyo gumigit na, 5 yung pro-China, pero isa lang ang pro-US. Pilipinas lang as of today. Ito po ang source po nito ay Foreign Affairs Magazine ng Singapore. So yun po yung verification. No? Meron pa ba dito? Oh. It is obvious why Canada will never be called again in Congress as a resource person. Thank you po for calling me too good and credible for the agents there. I even listen to it. Yan po, no? Ito, GMA US network is undeniable, walang kinikilingan. Walang kinikilingan, pero may kinakampihan at kinatatakutan, lalo na kung bayaran. Sabi ni...
Hindi tayo may sabi niyan, ha?
Siguro yung nagsabi niya, ha?
Malinaw yan, malinaw.
Sabi, si Madam Cathy ko ang nagtanong.
Uy! Yan ang gusto ko sa inyo eh.
Madam Cathy yung isa sa mga nagtanong. Alright. So, ito naman. So, tuloy na po tayo because I'd like to read the editorial which was written for us by Atty. Arnendo Valera. No? Kasi napakaganda nito eh. Pakita nga natin yung ating title page na maraming ito yung neutrality. Maraming bandera. Hindi natin may lagay lahat ng bandera pero the only constitutional and moral path on U.S. ambiguity over China on Taiwan issue. So hindi po geography, Mr. President, neutrality. The recent pronouncement, next slide please. The recent pronouncement of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos that the Philippines will have to get involved. Wow! Handa na ba kayong mga kabansa? Should an all-out war erupt between the U.S. and China over Taiwan is a great misreading of our Constitution and great misreading of our a dangerous abandonment of our independent foreign policy and a reckless invitation to embroil our nation in a war that is neither ours to fight or win. The Philippines is not a military appendage to any superpower. And you may even say that even with the mutual defense treaty. Our sovereignty and national interest demand that we act as an independent nation, friends to all, enemies to none, and not as a political pawn in the great power rivalry between Washington and Beijing. Next, constitutional mandate against war and for peace. Binanggit na po natin ito kanina, Article 2, Section 2. Explicit po ang Constitution natin sa rejection of war as an instrument of national policy. And if I may say, dapat mag-ina tayo lalo-lalo na kung anong missile ang ating gagamitin. Definitely, out na po dyan yung Typhoon missile system because the Typhoon missile system is aggressive. Hindi po defensive yan. Because the Tomahawk missiles that it can launch is number one, it can carry nuclear weapons, and number two, it can go as far as 2,500 kilometers. So hindi na po natin mabasahin yung Article 2, Section 2. Pero mabasahin natin yung Article Section 7. The state shall pursue an independent foreign policy. In its relations with other states, the paramount consideration shall be national sovereignty, territorial integrity, national interest, and the right to self-determination. I'd just like to say a few words about territorial integrity. Mga kabansa, ang mga Amerikano po, pag sinabi nila, hindi ba napapansin, pag binanggit nila yung sovereignty, immediately dinidikit nila yung sovereign rights. Bakit po? They are intentionally confusing you that sovereignty and sovereign rights are the same. They are asymmetrical. And in many cases, they are even contradictory to one another. Yung pong ating sovereignty is based on land sovereignty and the territorial sea, 12 nautical miles around our land sovereignty. Yung pong sovereign rights, no, ay iba. Dahil ang sovereignty po, mula sa puso ng kaila-ilaliman ng dagat at sa ilalim pa ng kaila-ilaliman ng dagat. Hanggang sa tubig at sa ibabaw ng tubig. Sa aerospace on top of it, lahat po yun may sovereignty tayo. Sa sovereign rights po, unang-una, rights lamang yan for economic benefits, kaya nga exclusive economic rights. Maaari yan ay lumampas ng 200 nautical miles, mas malayo kaysa 12 nautical mile territorial sea. Pero ibabaw po niyan ay high seas. And under UNCLOS, no country can claim sovereignty over the high seas. Kaya yan po ang ating, hindi pa kayo nagtataka mga kabansa na ating Coast Guard, mas gusto nilang lumapit sa Scarborough Shoal na pag-aari at may soberanya ang China. Pero 90 nautical miles na sila labas ng Zambales. Pero gusto nilang pumasok sa 12 nautical miles ng China sa Scarborough Shoal. Habang sila ay 90 nautical miles away na mula sa ating territorial sea sa Zambales. By constitutional design, our foreign policy is anchored not on subservience to the military objectives of other nations. It's not even subservience to our own military, but on the preservation of peace and the protection of our people. The President's statement suggesting inevitability in joining a Taiwan war undermines both principles. Another footnote. Kung magkakagera ba mga kabansa sa Taiwan, sino unang bobombay? Taiwan ba o Pilipinas?
Pilipinas.
Nasa atin yung mga ano eh, yung
Nandito po yung mga...
yung Typhoon, di ba? Yung missile launcher.
Typhoon missiles. Ha? Yung mga... Wala ng mga missile yan. Nandito po ang mga Engr missiles. Siyempre, i-neutralize muna nila yung outside threat. Baka mamaya hindi pa sila mag-landing sa Taiwan. And why would China bombard or even hurt their own people? The Taiwanese are Chinese. Mag-isip-isip kayo. Baka lahat ng parte ng Pilipinas, except yung mga Chinatown, mauna. Hala kayo. Third, in International law is the principle of neutrality. Under international law, particularly the Hague Convention 5 of 1907 and customary international norms, a neutral state is prohibited from participating in hostilities between belligerent states. Neutrality safeguards a nation's sovereignty while promoting peaceful resolution of disputes. Moreover, the Philippines is state party to the Charter of the United Nations, which in Article 2, Section 4 prohibits the use of threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any other state. Article 33 of this mandates peaceful settlement of disputes through negotiation, mediation, and arbitration, not through military attack. In the case of Taiwan, the Philippines has long adhered to the One China policy, recognizing the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China, intervening militarily in a conflict that Beijing deems a domestic matter. That would constitute a violation of that policy, at ito po, invite retaliatory measures and escalate tensions in the region. Just as like what's happening with our patintero. Lagi po sinasabi mga kabansa, tigilan na natin ang patintero dahil baka ito ay mauwi sa tumbang preso. ASEAN neutrality agreements. Signatory din po tayo sa Declaration of Sovereign Peace, Freedom and Neutrality and the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. Yan. National interest over superpower rivalry. The President's framing that the Philippines will have to get involved wrongly assumes that geography and alliance commitments erase our agency. Even the Mutual Defense Treaty does not compel the Philippines to participate in an offensive war unrelated to our own defense. The Mutual Defense Treaty is triggered only by an armed attack on the Philippines, its metropolitan territory, or its armed forces in the Pacific. And in fact, the Kissinger Doctrine specifically says that the South China Sea is not, there is no jurisdiction of the Mutual Defense Treaty over the South China Sea. Nor does the U.S. recognize any or go in favor of any of the claimants in the South China Sea. Instead of preparing to serve as a forward base in the U.S.-China war, the Philippines must focus on protecting our overseas contract workers through humanitarian and evacuation measures, which is under the jurisdiction of the Manila Economic and Cultural Office, the MECO, and the Department of Migrant Workers. Hindi po yan, hindi po sakop yan. Hindi dapat si Butch nagpaplano dyan. Bakit? You will only be called even by the DFA for your planes, for your C-130s, para i-transport. Hindi kayo ang lead agency in the evacuation of our OFWs. Should that occur? Iniisip niyo yung OFWs natin doon. Eh, paano yung mga OFWs natin sa loob ng China? Aba, gulos dili naman po kayo. the moral imperative of peace. War in the Taiwan Strait could devastate the Asia-Pacific region, cripple economies, and endanger millions of lives, including of those Filipinos in Taiwan and across East Asia. Hindi lamang dyan kasi marami nang involved. May mga OFWs tayo sa Indonesia, sa Malaysia, sa Singapore, sa Indonesia, o pati sa Myanmar. Meron tayo. Sa Laos at Cambodia, may mga OFWs tayo. Our leaders must see the warning of history. Small nations that serve as staging grounds for great power conflicts pay the heaviest price. Just as the Philippines was second only to the most devastated nation in World War II, next only to Warsaw in Poland. The Philippines should not allow itself to become a proxy battlefield for the ambition of others, just as Ukraine allowed itself. And where is Ukraine now? Peace will be attained in Ukraine only after the Russo-Ukrainian territories are assured of safety and may even proclaim autonomy from Ukraine and may even join the Russian Federation. Statement na si Trump, ayaw na ni Trump gumastos, alam niya walang pupuntahan dahil sus Mariosep mga kadasa, kulang lang ang padala ng Russia sa lahat ng parte ng Ukraine, ballistic missiles niya. Marami pa eh. And finally, a call for a declaration of neutrality. It must be backed by diplomatic initiatives urging all parties to commit to dialogue, confidence-building measures, and the avoidance of unilateral military actions. The Philippines' highest duty is to its own people, not to the geopolitical designs of any foreign capital. Our legacy as a nation should be part of a peace builder, not a pawn. So, it is not something that in perilous times the Filipino must remind their leaders, especially you, Mr. President, that sovereignty is not merely the right to decide. It is the courage to decide for ourselves. So please stand firm against the United States. Up to now, we're still thinking kung bakit ka nagpapagamit. Ano ba? Will you come clean before us and admit kung ano talaga, bakit may parang tali sa leeg mo and a Damocles sword over your head pagdating sa mga Amerikano? Let us stand firm on our constitutional commitment to peace and refuse to be dragged into wars that are not our own. Hindi po kahinaan ng kapayapaan, Mr. President. At pagiging neutral is not surrender. In fact, it is the highest assertion of our independence. Dahil para hindi tayo magamit ng sino man, we are, as our Constitution requires, to be neutral. So yan, itanong pa po ba tayo mula sa